You're listening to the Deranged Nation, a true crime podcast featuring New York Times best-selling paranormal romance author and your host, Teresa Gabelman.
Hey guys, welcome to Deranged Nation. This is the first podcast of many coming your way. If you are into true crime, any type of mystery, or anything deranged, you're at the right place. I'm here with my family. Helena.
Hi guys, excited to be here, excited to hear some of these stories today.
Cool. Cody.
Hey guys, there's a lot of sick shit in the world, and we're gonna bring some of them to light.
Sweet. And we have Ron, who actually is connected, not in a bad way,
not connected. Trust me, I'm not connected.
to one of the cases that we're going to go over today, and I said in a good way.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, guys?
Okay, so this is going to be a little bit different. I love watching any type of true crime. I listen to podcasts. We actually have two cases, and the cases are very similar in the fact of the dates differ by only one day, and the names of the victims are separated by only two letters. So the cases that we are going to do today, or tonight, is there's similarities and there are dissimilarities in the cases. And one of the headings that I found when I was doing research was two killings similar, clue or coincidence. They're both named Cheryl. The 10-year-old that was murdered, she has two L's with her spelling, and the 16-year-old has one. And their last names are also similar by one letter, Siegel and Spiegel, which I don't know, to me, it just seemed really kind of odd, but I want to get your opinions. I want you guys to think, to let me know what you think also. But Cheryl Siegel was 16 years old. She was at the Firefly Cafe with her friends, and when they left, they got a ride from James Finley, who was 29 years old. And he was a friend of a friend, and they decided to drop off Cheryl's friend first. And Cheryl's friend asked her to call her, to let her know that she got home okay.
Right.
That call never came.
Right.
So her friend called her mom, told her, what was going on. She hadn't heard from Cheryl. Cheryl was not home yet. And that's when her mom called the police. So 18 hours later, people on horseback found Cheryl's body 23 miles from the Firefly Cafe, buried under a blanket of leaves. And that's kind of going to be important on the second case that we're going to do. Right. But it was on the bank of Gregory Creek. She was shot once in the left temple. Her left nipple was excised. Oh my God. And a large X was etched in the flesh of her torso. And I read some accounts, but I couldn't really find anything much about it. But they were talking about the Zodiac Killer. I don't know if you guys know anything about the Zodiac Killer.
A little bit, yeah.
But nothing really came into that.
Told you there's some sick shit.
There is
sick shit.
That, and for a 16-year-old, I mean, that's, to me, for someone to do that to anybody, but a 16-year-old, to take her left nipple.
Yeah, what year was this again? What year did this happen?
She disappeared on October 17th, 1970.
1970. Where is the Firefly Cafe at?
That was in Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And her body was where?
Especially in times like that, though, like...
they found
they
her.
Didn't expect shit like
right.
that to happen back then like that.
No.
Or know what to do when it does happen.
Exactly.
How to handle it.
No, that was 23 miles from the Firefly Cafe.
Like, what city was that?
It was on Gregory Creek, which I believe, I'll have to look, but I believe that was around Pendleton County. I'm not for sure, though.
That's Kentucky?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. She was found nude, but her post-mortem revealed no evidence of rape. Her clothing was later discovered scattered on nearby roadways as if tossed from a moving vehicle. So, I obviously, James Finley is the first person that they're going to go after. He was actually arrested the next day with evidence against him overwhelming. They found actually dried smeared blood of Cheryl's on his jacket. The tires of his Plymouth convertible matched the tracks near where they found the body, and a .25 caliber revolver turned into the car's visor had been fired, and the bullet was retrieved.
And that was his vehicle.
And that was his vehicle, and his gun that they found in the vehicle.
Right.
He had recently purchased the gun from the owner of the Firefly Cafe, which is kind of odd. And her friend actually saw that gun in the car that night.
That is pretty odd. Were they there all the time? Was that like their go-to spot, the Firefly Cafe, to hang out at?
I never found anything in any of the research that I did.
Yeah.
But the thing of it is that she was 16 years old.
Yeah.
And I tried to look up the Firefly Cafe. And obviously it's not there. But I couldn't find anything on it. So I don't know if that was like a nightclub or what it was.
Yeah.
But for a 16-year-old to be inside, you know.
Yeah, how would she
Yeah,
be?
exactly.
Especially if it was a bar or...
Right.
If you know where the Firefly Cafe was, just leave us a comment in the link.
Yeah, because I really want to know, because I did try to find it.
Yeah.
I tried to Google it.
What time of day was it when them two left?
Did not. They found her. Let me see. They found her at night.
So it was probably midday.
It was right.
Because it was same day that they found her, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably midday.
So did
then.
they know this Finley guy, or what was the deal?
Said a friend of a friend.
Friend of a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm not going to mention the motorcycle club, but he was a member of the motorcycle club and was no stranger to the justice system. He had been arrested 5 times prior, mostly for property and drug crimes. The most serious charge was assault with a deadly weapon, which was dropped before the trial.
Okay, so is this a much older man than her?
29. He was 29 years old.
So, I mean, was this girl... I wonder if this girl was mixed up in anything, doing things she wasn't supposed to be doing that caused her to get involved with this person.
Yeah.
I mean, at 16.
That's
yeah.
that's pretty young to be running around with a 29-year-old man.
Right.
In a bike gang.
Yeah, if that.
When he was arrested the morning after her body was found, Finley told investigators he had no clue Cheryl was dead. He actually had a whole different story. He said after he dropped off Cheryl's friends, he and Cheryl made a quick stop at the home of his brother-in-law. So, of course, guess who he's going to pin it on?
Yeah.
His name was Dennis Smith, and he was also part of the motorcycle club. He said that Smith asked to borrow his car, of course, and that he would drop Cheryl off at home. Finley agreed. According to Finley, his gun had been in the car's sun visor when he turned the vehicle over to Smith. The blood smear on his jacket, Finley's lawyer would later theorize, had been secondary transfer via traces of blood Smith left in the front seat.
Okay, so where was the jacket found? Was it found in the vehicle?
No, they probably
took it from him.
Took it, yeah, took it from me.
Well, either way, why would grown men be running around with a 16-year-old girl? Why would you have to make a stop at your brother-in-law's regardless to...
Right.
With the 16-year-old child?
Exactly. I mean, I feel they got their man, but, you know, this is where it kind of gets weird. At his capital murder trial, he took the stand in his own defense and implicated, of course, his brother-in-law, who was subpoenaed to appear as a witness. Smith denied he had saw Finley or Cheryl the night in question and had an actual alibi that was supported by 2 of the motorcycle club.
Right.
So,
of course. I mean, that's what they do.
Exactly. And unmoved by Finley's testimony, the jury returned a conviction after only 3 hours. So that tells you something. They didn't have to think hard on it.
Right.
And sentenced him to death. He continued with his innocence, and en route to his death row, he warned the prison guard Cheryl's killer would strike again. And his exact words were, "You're going to know I'm not guilty when you get the next one."
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So he went to the electric chair?
No. Actually, it was overturned.
Euthanized, I mean?
He's life in prison now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Life in prison now. So that, and it was kind of crazy because when I seen this, I knew about the other Cheryl Spiegel because of my husband Ron, who actually lived on her street when she disappeared, and she was age 10. I never knew about the 16-year-old that Finley murdered. I never knew that. But when I seen the headlines of when I was doing research of the 2 killings, is it clue or coincidence? It was kind of odd that this guy said there will be a next one.
And it'll be too coincidental, right? Yeah. I mean, come on.
Right. And before I get into Cheryl with 2L, the 10-year-old, the slang similarities between the 2 are both victims were young females. Attempts that have been made to cover both bodies.
Right.
And I don't know, the shows and the detective and the police shows and true crime, they always say that when they cover up the body, it's like a personal killing type of thing. You know what I mean?
Like personal killing, yeah.
Both victims were discarded in or near a creek. Kentuckians say crick. And both victims were mutilated and dumped nude. Both Cheryl had been disposed of approximately 23 miles from the locations they encountered their killer, which is odd.
So the 16-year-old wasn't claimed rape, right? Like there was no rape, they said. No. But back then, could they even tell if they wanted to?
Yeah, they had rape. I mean, in the 70s, I mean, they didn't have the DNA that they've got now, of course, but they had rape kits and, you know, stuff like that.
Judging by the numbers, to me, it sort of seems like it's some kind of ritual cult kind of satanic shit or something, judging by the numbers and, you know, the burial. And then you said the one girl had some shit carved on her and stuff missing.
Yeah, that's kind of strange.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're both exactly 23 miles.
Yeah.
Just odds. You know, I know numbers.
Of course, these 2
numbers
bikers
and symbols mean a lot in those.
And what was weird, what's really weird is, I don't know why it just keeps coming back to me. Their names are so similar, and they were Cheryl Spiegel, the 10-year-old, the one I'm getting ready to talk about now, disappeared on October 19th, 1971. So that was just 1 day shy from a year ago that the other Cheryl was taken.
Okay. And how far away from each other were they?
The Firefly Cafe and
the disappearances,
Highland Heights, which is where Cheryl Spiegel, the one that I'm getting ready to do now, I believe they said in one of the research things that I did, because it's right across the river.
Yeah.
So maybe 10 miles.
Right. Close enough to be in traveling distance of the person who did the first one.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, the first one had the 2 bikers with the alibis and stuff. So if they were doing it, you know, as an organized crime thing, I mean, they could probably get away with it and nobody would know.
Well, the with Cheryl, the one that disappeared on Rose Avenue, the one I'm getting ready to do. We had talked to someone the other night that brought some things into light that really makes me wonder also, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but you'll kind of see more similarities as we start talking and when Ron starts talking about what he remembers when he lived on the road.
Okay.
So with Cheryl Spiegel, age 10, disappeared on October 19th, 1971. It was her birthday, which just breaks my heart.
Yeah.
That's just so sad.
It's devastating.
So she was a fifth grader at Highland Heights Elementary School when she vanished. So on the morning that she disappeared, and they really went into detail in the news clippings and stuff, but when you see her picture, which we will be posting on our Facebook page and Instagram, she's just a very beautiful girl. Every account that I read about, everybody said she was sweet, very quiet. The family, from what Ron's going to tell you guys, kind of stayed to themselves a little bit.
Right.
But she was in a plaid jumper and a gold blouse. Actually, she had 3 brothers. 2, I believe, were older and 1 was younger. Both of her brothers left for the bus stop at the top of Rose Avenue without her that morning. Some of the reports said that she was running late. Other reports say she actually arrived early to a friend's house, and when they weren't ready, she left, indicating she'll be back so they could walk to the bus stop together. She never showed up. So Cheryl's dad reported that she left out the back door of the house around 6:25 a.m. and he saw her disappeared into the dense fog. So it was foggy that morning.
Oh, well, that makes it even more eerie, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, it's just, I don't know. This case really gets to me, and probably anybody else that really, dives into it.
Yeah. Especially living so close to it when you guys were young, Right.
I just gotta say one thing that isn't it weird that there's just 2 Cheryl Spiegel and Siegels that live right there by each other?
Yeah, it is odd.
That's just odd too.
And that's what drew me to this.
Just weird.
And for the fact that I've known about it because of Ron. I was young. I think in 71, I think I was 6.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any other murders in the area similar, maybe.
And names?
Or the dates, or
that's something that we can dive into. Maybe revisit or
look
something.
Into see if this sick fucker's still on the loose out there.
Right. But on that morning after she disappeared, or went to the bus stop, she never boarded the bus. No one seemed to notice. She was not at school that day. No one called to see where she was because at that time it wasn't really standard.
Yeah.
As it is now when, if your kid don't show up for school, they're calling, hey, Cody ain't here today.
Yeah.
If I didn't call in, we would get a phone call, where's your kid? You never called in.
Yeah.
So she all day. So she had been gone, missing all day. And her brothers noticed at the end of the day, when she didn't get on the bus, they started asking around, have you seen Cheryl?
It's
Nobody
not like they
had seen
had
her.
cell phones and stuff back then to call the home and say, hey, did she not come into school today? What's going on?
Once they realized that she was unaccounted for, they immediately knew something was up. By all reports that I read, the police were immediately called and the search for Cheryl was on. The police figured, something, she wasn't at school all day.
Yeah.
She had stopped at a friend's house, obviously. And over 100 volunteers of police and firemen showed up to help with the search. Found nothing. Cheryl's older brother, Mickey, and her dad, Billy Joe, were searching, everywhere. They found nothing, no clue, no clothing, no nothing. So, do you want to go into anything here, Ron, or what you remember?
Well, let's see. Back, I was only about 7 years old, I guess, when all this happened, and
so
I
you
did know Cheryl. I lived at 58 Rose Avenue, and Cheryl lived at 78. which is just a couple houses down, actually. If you go there now, you'll see the house is gone. It caught fire in the 80s and burnt down. But we had only lived there a couple, 3 years maybe that I can remember. I attended first grade at Highland Heights Elementary. It was called Dale School back then. But I knew Cheryl from the neighborhood because the streets were safe. All of us played on the streets, kickball, wiffle ball, things like that, run up and down the roads and stuff. So it was a pretty safe neighborhood, and everybody was pretty relaxed at being out or having their kids out playing in a neighborhood. But I remember the night that the search started because we had looked out our back window and seen a bunch of flashlights going through the backyard. And we had told my dad, we said me and my brother, we said there's flashlights out in the backyard. There's people back there. And my dad looked out the window and then he took off out the front door. And he was out there for quite some time and was walking around the back of the yard and everything, but he made us stay inside. He just said, stay inside. I got to find out what's going on. So when he came back, I heard him tell my mom that there was a little girl missing. And I don't think he really knew who Cheryl was other than just a kid on the street. But right away, things kind of went crazy with the whole case. But yeah, so.
I mean, that's got to be traumatizing to be that young and not know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I was 7, but I knew who Cheryl was because he had said the little girl Cheryl down the road. And I had known who Cheryl was because there was a blind man that used to sit down on the street, a couple houses. Actually, he was probably a couple houses up, kind of between our house and their house.
Yeah.
And this man was blind, and he would sit out on the porch and whittle. He would carve things for all the kids in the neighborhood.
Couldn't see at all?
No, he was blind. Totally
Completely?
blind.
Wow.
Yeah. And he would carve some of the coolest things. He would carve these little cups, and he carved me a ball and chain.
Oh, that's cool.
And he would carve stuff, and all the kids would sit there and watch him carve because we were all amazed that he could carve like he was.
Right.
And he was blind.
Right.
And, he was a trusted man. Like, all the parents let everybody go down there and sit and watch him carve. And he would, like I said, he would give the kids stuff. And Cheryl would always have her little brother, her little baby brother, but she would either be carrying him or most of the time he would be in a stroller.
Oh, wow.
So she would kind of come across the street where we all were and have her little brother in the stroller. And her brothers would always hang out on the front porch and in the yard. The house was a little run down. Probably most of the houses on the street were nicer, so they were, a low income family.
Right.
They didn't have a lot of money.
Right.
But I mean, pretty much everybody on the street knew who Cheryl was and the Spiegel family.
Right.
Some of her brothers were motorcycle guys.
Oh, were they?
Yeah,
involved in the same.
They always had 3 or 4 motorcycles parked around the house, and
black vest.
Oh,
wearing the
man.
black vest and things like that.
So
Because my dad would always be like, "You stay away from them guys
Oh, of
over
course.
there," and not that, I mean, I was 7 years old.
Right.
It wasn't like I was trying to hang out with a bunch of motorcycle dudes.
Yeah.
All we did was want to play.
Yeah.
We just wanted to play with the kids on the street.
Did things change after her disappearance in the neighborhood? Was
yeah,
it
pretty much.
nobody was allowed out as
no.
much?
We had a fenced in yard.
Right.
It was a chain link fence. If you go down on the old street now. The fence is gone, but it used to be a fenced-in yard. And, after that, we wasn't allowed out of the yard.
Oh, I'm sure.
Or if we had to be right out in front of the house.
Right.
For the long time. But what I do kind of, see, I didn't ride the school bus. My dad took me to work or to school.
Pretty much work.
Yeah. Back then, I didn't know
First
it was.
grade,
Yeah,
going
first
to work.
grade, got to do some work. But, yeah. But he always drove me to school even before this whole incident. So I never rode the school bus.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was leaving to get in the car, I'd always see all the kids walking to the top of the street to catch the bus.
Right.
Now, from what I remember was that, and some of the kids on the street might be able, if any of them hear this, they might know different, but they didn't catch the bus at the top of the street.
Right.
They walked through the woods. There was a path. Yeah, so I didn't actually ride the school bus. My dad took me to the school because he would just do that right before he went to work, on his way to work. So I never really rode the school bus. But I kind of remember, and I haven't seen any reports about it, but I kind of remember that the kids walked to the top of the street, and like I said, I would see them walking up the street while I'm outside waiting on my dad. But they would actually cut across to the other street. I think it was called Steelman. And that's where they would catch the bus. So there was like a path at the top of the street that went across through the woods behind the other houses.
Oh, so they would all walk through the woods to get to the bus stop?
Yeah.
So
it was kind of close to the house. It was pretty much just like cutting through somebody's backyard to get to the other street.
Right. But if it's foggy one day, nobody can see anything.
You could go down there now and see that most of the woods are still there. It's like it was when I was little.
Right.
From what I can remember anyway. But yeah, so I don't know. I haven't seen that brought up much, but I think some people suspected that she could have been snatched when she was cutting across the path, being behind everybody and being the last one, because she was actually supposedly late. She, I don't know, went to a girl's house that she walked to the bus stop with, and the girl wasn't ready. So she left to come back, but I don't know anymore after that.
Did you, or do you remember that day? Like, do you remember if you even seen her? I mean, that's probably hard to think back on, but.
Yeah, and I don't really. I don't think I did, just because of the fact that, sometimes I was out there before my dad waiting.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times he was telling me to hurry up and get my ass in the car.
Yeah, at that age, that's not what you're thinking about anyways.
And really, at the time when it happened, I probably never thought about it either.
Right.
Because I was only 7.
Right.
I did know that she was supposedly going to have a birthday party that it was her birthday coming up.
Oh, man.
But I never really put together, 2 and 2 about it actually happening on her birthday and stuff until later.
Yeah. But did cops or anything come to the school? I mean, did you have investigations going on at the school or anything like that?
Again, I was only in first grade.
Yeah.
So I assume they did. What I remember is nobody really realized that she was missing until later.
Right.
And it was actually dark when they were searching because, it was October, so it probably got dark around 7:30, maybe 7 o'clock.
Earlier than that.
Maybe earlier than that. Yeah. So, all I can remember was all the people in the backyard going through the woods with flashlights and stuff. So that's about all my recollections of it was back then.
It was in October, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the actual date?
19th is the day she was missing. Was the 19th of October.
And when did they find her?
They did not find her for 13 days.
That's crazy to be so close to something and it be right next to home, man.
It actually was November 1st is when they found her.
November 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it was on her brother's birthday.
Mm-hmm. His 11th birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Great
When they
birthday
found
that
her.
is.
But when you ask if they had been to the school,
Yeah.
the police actually did go to the school, and come to find out, she had told some classmates and some teachers that because it was her birthday, she wasn't going to be there that day.
Really?
Yeah, which was odd. So
And supposedly she was going to her grandmother's.
yeah, there's accounts that she had told someone that her uncle was going to pick her up and take her to her grandpa or grandma's.
Was her uncle involved in that biker gang?
No, not that I know, not that
But
I've seen.
it's possible for him to be affiliated, if anything, because of her brothers being involved in it.
Right.
If they were
Yeah,
all
he
hanging around there all the time, come
Could
on.
have been.
I mean,
don't
what
know.
if they were the ones supposed to take her? That's just my opinion or insight on it, but
Right. They actually, the police reported that they checked out 25 to 30 leads. One of the leads, witnesses were saying that they thought they saw her at a bus stop with a young man around 2 a.m. on the day of her disappearance. One of the school bus drivers thought that he may have picked her up on a nearby street Wednesday morning and transported her to local high school. So there was just people coming forward saying, they
a
thought
bunch
they
of
saw
different
her.
ideas.
The police actually, and another thing that I find odd was a bunch of kids and actually adults were saying there was a black pickup truck that was reported in the area days before her appearance.
That normally obviously wasn't there.
Right. But supposedly all of that, everything checked out. She didn't show up at her grandma's
Right.
house.
For her birthday.
Exactly. So the police actually were going on the lead of a runaway.
Right.
But, like I said, they were saying that, a lot of people were saying she wasn't going to be at school.
Yeah.
One of the girls, or one of the students that was walking up to the bus stop actually said she thought she heard rustling in the bushes.
Oh, no.
It kind of scared her. She just didn't pay attention and took off.
Yeah.
So
While she was at the bus stop, she heard it, or on her way?
On her way.
On her way.
See, before we did this, and we've gone down there a few times, but we actually just recently went down the road, and when we were coming back up, it's a very narrow road. The houses are like on top of each other.
Right.
And it was just so odd because we were from where her house was as we were going up. It's hard to think, I'm thinking, did she scream?
Right.
Why didn't anybody hear her?
Did she have a chance to?
There's some reports saying that one of the neighbors saw something out the window, wasn't for sure. Just all kinds of different things. But you would think that, somebody would have heard something.
Yeah.
At the street, people park on the street, and when we were, going up and another car was coming down, we had to pull over so they could get past.
That's how small
narrow
the street is, yeah.
So you would think somebody heard
Oh,
something.
of course. It being active back then, too, with all the kids and everyone
Right.
playing and knowing each other, how could someone not?
Exactly.
It honestly sounds planned to me. I think whoever took her had to have been watching her
Or had a
knew her,
relationship with her.
or like wanted her, because I mean the similarities in the names, the burial, all that. Yeah, I mean, and then,
Well, there was a man. He lived across the street on the porch.
Yeah.
And, he lived in the house, but he always
With
sat
his
out
mom.
on the porch.
Uh-huh.
And I can even remember, like, my grandmother lived on Kroll Avenue, where it was in walking distance from where we lived.
Right.
So we would walk, like when my dad was at work, my mom and my brother, we would walk to my grandma's house
Mm-hmm.
on that US 27. This was before they put the bridge in and 275 and all that. It was one road that just connected into Fort Thomas. And there was always a man that sat on a porch. And a couple times when my dad would walk, we would walk to a little carry out. It was called Bluegrass Carry Out up on the road just to get pop and stuff. Dad would always say, hey, don't talk to that guy.
Right, no eye contact.
If he ever says anything to you, let me know and that kind of stuff. So there was some suspicion that, because he sat out there all the time, that he was possibly a suspect. But
they could never prove it.
Nothing was ever proven.
My opinion is strongly for this guy, because even before I knew anything about, like I said, I was like probably 6.
Yeah.
But I didn't even know anything about this, but I did have friends that lived in that area.
Right.
And I only lived, what would you say Bonjan was like where I used to live?
Probably
not even...
Maybe a mile.
Maybe a mile from Rose Avenue.
Where it was, yeah.
I even knew about this man. I mean, people in the neighborhood said how weird, how creepy.
Yeah.
He would stare. He would say things
he was obviously much older
inappropriately
than the people he talked to. Like,
he was
stuff.
an older man, probably in his
still living with his mother, right?
50s, 60s.
It was kind of
Ooh.
Maybe.
Yeah, and Grandpa was a God-loving man, and not often did he tell you to stay away from somebody.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Even when I was a kid, not
something.
very often would he tell you don't talk to somebody, and if they say anything to you, tell them. Like, not often would he be like that with many people. At least
he
not that I
trusted a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So on it was around the 9th day. She's still missing.
Okay.
The Highland Heights Police Department actually called the FBI in to help. They started gathering fingerprints from the Spiegel home. And now I don't really know much about their family, other than, from what I've heard, what I've read. There was some rough characters that hung around.
Yeah.
Her mother was actually, her birth mother lived in Virginia. And her stepmother, I don't know, there's different accounts saying that they didn't have a good relationship, but,
Yeah, Ron did say something about remembering her screaming and stuff.
Yeah, I remember her always out yelling for the kids.
Yeah.
Out in the front yard and stuff, but that's really all I knew of her.
Right.
The police also set up a fund, for information that actually ended up back then. I mean, that was pretty good money. $1,200.
Oh yeah.
The police said that they would add another 1,000, so 2,200 for any information on her disappearance, which didn't come up to anything.
Right.
And I know a lot of from some of the accounts, I guess it would be hard because the police presence was probably there a whole lot, trying to get information, kept coming back, talking to the, neighbors and stuff like that.
Right.
Do you remember any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of remember the police being around a little more. But like I said, after that happened, we wasn't allowed out of the yard,
Yeah.
or far from the house as were most of the kids in there that, kind of cut down all the playing on the street stuff for a while.
Right.
And we moved out of there shortly sometime after.
Right. Did you remember anything with Cheryl? Like, did she have very many friends? Were there people that she played with, or was she kind of to herself?
She was more to herself. Yeah, she didn't really have many friends on the street, because most of the kids on the street were a lot older than us.
Right.
Like, she was 3 years older than me.
Okay.
So, no, she was, from what I remember, she's mostly by herself and with
Right.
her little brother.
I wonder if she
Pushing him
ever
around.
traveled past this man who was so quiet or not quiet, but very verbal
Well,
with younger
the-
children.
Well, we walk to the bus every day.
Right,
you
but her
know,
being
and-
alone when she walks to the bus, you
and-
know, that would give him more opportunity to speak up to her and nobody know if it's a foggy day and you can't see
Yep.
10 feet
I
in
mean,
front of you.
He was a big suspect for
Yeah.
quite some time.
Well, and
And I
his
think
house is visible, like
Yeah,
the road.
he can
you
sit
can
on his
look
front porch and see the top of the road
see
and
everything.
easy.
probably the top of the other road.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
All
So-
angle view.
So the way I found out about it, I mean, his mom, Ron's mom, was telling a story, and this has been years and years and years ago. And you want to tell him what happened?
So-
It's funny.
So back when I was 7, obviously, I was kind of dumb little 7-year-old. I tried to pull a electric cord out of an extension cord,
Oh, God.
and I couldn't pull it out. So I put it in my mouth and bit down on it to pull it out, and I got electrocuted. Yeah, it's funny now, but
Right.
it wasn't at the time.
Oh, of course not.
So
It knocked him in. If it wouldn't have knocked him into the wall and knocked it out of his mouth, he probably
I
wouldn't
would've
be
died.
sitting
Oh my
here right
God,
now.
yeah, it was that bad, and I got a scar on the side of my mouth from it. Well,
Oh, now I can see that.
sometime
That's crazy.
after that, what happened was my mouth started to heal, closed.
Yeah.
So I had to have plastic surgery. So the doctor went in and kind of shaped it all back up, put some stitches in, and I had to wear this little mask thing over my face. So I couldn't eat regular food.
Right.
Regular food, I had to have be fed through a straw.
Applesauce, probably.
Yeah, a lot of soft food. But then I had gotten the mask taken off and I got the stitches taken out. But it was still had a little scab on it.
Yeah.
And I sneezed and it busted open and busted a blood vessel open, and blood was squirting all over the house. And
Now, listen. This is when the police are
this is when
scanning.
the
Oh my
police are
God.
actually going around asking questions.
Oh, shit. And they
And
saw
there's
Yeah.
blood everywhere.
And there's blood everywhere on the walls.
Oh, my God.
And my dad grabbed a towel, covered my mouth, and carried me to the car and put me in the car. And my mom was holding the towel on my mouth because they didn't know how to stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
And blood was squirting all over the inside of the car
Oh,
and
my
everything.
God. They were probably so pissed.
No, they
All
were
that blood
freaking
to clean up.
scared.
Yeah.
Well, your mom,
They
your mom was like,
thought-
"Oh my God, they're going to think we had something to do with that."
Yeah, but all they'd have to do is test it, obviously.
Right, but at the
still,
time when it's all
going
on,
that would be scary.
I mean,
Yeah.
they didn't have the DNA testing back then, though.
Not
so
like
it would've
they
been
do
kinda hard
now.
to prove.
Yeah, or if
I
they
mean,
messed up something.
but I
Yeah.
guess a big bloody mouth would be kind of like, hey, look here, bud.
Well, I think too. I
Yeah.
mean, as a mom, you're freaking out about that. But then again, in the back of your mind, you're thinking that there's active search for a missing girl going
There's
on, and I've
blood
got
all over
blood
my
everywhere.
house, and they're searching the
Yeah.
whole
So
road.
your mind, anyway, isn't thinking
Yeah.
straight. You know,
Yeah. So, and
that's how I actually found out about
Everything.
what had happened. Yeah,
Right.
back then.
Hearing
Yeah.
that story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an interesting way to hear about
That's
it.
it, yeah.
That's kind of scary.
So when we got to the hospital to the doctor, he just give it a little pinch, held it for a few seconds, and it quit bleeding.
Of course.
And he was like, "Oh, all you had to do was put pressure on it, and it would have stopped bleeding." But yeah, there was blood. It looked like a murder scene
Oh my God.
because it was squirting. It was an artery
Oh
or
my
a blood
God.
vessel. and
Even
it
his
was
brother,
squirting
who's
out.
2 years younger than you, is like, "Mom, I remember even being that young, being in the car and blood just squirting up
Oh
on
my
the
God.
ceiling of the
I'm
car."
surprised
Yeah.
you didn't pass out.
No, I had to stay there for a few days and get blood, let my blood build back up. It was crazy. Yeah. So
So when did they? Let's get back to body itself, you said they found her 9 days later?
No.
Her brother's birthday.
13.
They found 13 days. It was the day after Halloween.
Ooh.
And it was actually, so on November 1st, the milkman was making deliveries. And he was going his regular route. And from what I understand and what I've read is it's a old country, and I've seen actual pictures, and it is a very narrow old country road. And there was a spot where he could pull off.
Yeah.
And he had pulled off, stretched his legs, took a whiz, whatever he had to do. But the day before, he had noticed a rock formation in the creek and was like, that's odd. Rocks just don't form like that.
And he passed it constantly, so.
Yeah, so, and he just went on about his business. And he went back I believe it was the next day, and it was still there.
Yeah.
So there was, from what they say, there was garbage and everything. So he kind of made his way over there, and he started pulling up the rocks. And he said couldn't really, and I guess I would be the same way. As you're doing that and you're exposing what's underneath of it is a body.
Yeah.
You're just like not really realizing what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Because you're not expecting anything like.
So what we're imagining here is like a creek kind of full of trash, dumped on a little bit.
Yeah. It was the dump area.
Right. Full of muck, kind of gross.
And the sad thing, and I don't know, it's everybody else might not, look at it this way, but the road was called New Hope Road. And to me, to find, for a 10-year-old to possibly be killed in that location and left there.
On New Hope Road.
New Hope Road. It's just, I don't know.
Telling you that ritual shit. It's that ritual shit.
Well,
he just can't get over the ritual
she
shit.
was stabbed 26 times.
I mean, come on.
In a circle.
So actually,
in a circle, like in her abdomen, or
no? First, actually, it was a week before he had noticed the rocks.
Okay.
And I guess just doing his normal route and keep seeing that, he's like, okay, there's something weird or whatever. I don't know exactly what made him, go investigate.
Spontaneously.
Exactly. But he ended up seeing the flesh of a human body. So he freaked out, took off, didn't have a cell phone.
Right.
And called the police right away. And it was Cheryl. So she had been stabbed 26 times. Jesus. The stab wounds were done in a circular motion on her back. And this is just so sad. They were so deep that some of the wounds cut through to her chest and abdomen.
So basically went all the way through her.
It was like a rage. It's like a rage. The official cause of death was internal hemorrhaging due to the stabbing. She was brutalized even more in what was described as being raped with instruments.
Obviously, no DNA left behind, being in a bed of water for so long.
Plus, she was in water. There is more on this story. There is a lady, her name is Beth Rowland, who's done a blog called Gone in the Fog. And this lady is amazing in what she's done. She is really trying to find out who did this.
Yeah.
To Cheryl. And there's a lot more to it. I highly recommend going and reading her blog. She's actually talked to psychics, which was very interesting.
Yeah.
To see what the psychics had said.
Uh-huh.
So yeah. The other thing that she did, she's actually had interactions with the family. I think she went to a family reunion.
Oh, that's
talked to some of the people, some of the family. But Cheryl was buried for, so many years, 40-something years in an unmarked grave.
Oh, man.
And this lady set up I don't know if it was I may have been a GoFundMe to raise money for a headstone. And
That's
in
awesome.
2018, Cheryl finally got her headstone.
That's awesome.
So,
Well,
yeah.
kudos to her for the good work.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think she mentioned that her father was one of the police officers. Her father-in-law.
Her father-in-law.
was one of the police officers that was kind of came on after the case and was doing some investigation.
Okay.
And supposedly he's kind of leaving signals and stuff to her, helping her to still figure out this case. And he's buried 2 grave sites down from where Cheryl's buried.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Didn't they share a birthday? Did I read that?
I believe so.
I think Cheryl and the police
wow.
officer shared a birthday also, I believe. But I believe I read that in the blog.
Okay, that's interesting.
But yeah, I highly recommend if you guys are, interested more in Cheryl's case. She goes in so much more detail. But it's called Gone in the Fog, and her name is Beth Rowland, and she's just amazing for what she's done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely want to look into maybe some correlations and some other maybe murders and see if this guy switched over or guys. I don't know. Maybe what was the other guy's name? Dennis. The guy with the alibis.
Yeah, Dennis Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he raises some red flags.
And I also
I'm a firm believer it's tied to the other girl. Like I really feel like it is. I don't think it's the old guy on the street because was he really capable of moving? I mean, how big were these rocks? You know what I mean? Was he capable of dragging that body out there and putting?
Stabbing
how many rocks
many
were there?
Well,
was this dude really physically capable enough to pull something off like that?
Right, and I think the police have done enough investigation to figure out he wasn't the one.
Yeah.
Even the milkman was a suspect for a while.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
you found
how come
it.
all of a sudden the milkman finds the body down here in nowhere?
Was he her milkman?
Did you find that out?
No, but they said that
They might all had the same route a time or two, maybe.
Right.
Well,
possibly.
they said he
Shared
could
a
have
route.
possibly had gone past that road to, get his supplies or whatever. So
It's just with the guy being arrested saying this was going to happen again, and then some weird ritual stuff going on with the nipple missing on the other girl, the same names, areas.
Circular cuts too.
Yeah.
That's strange.
The other one, the way they were buried next to a creek.
Did you say she was in Pendleton County too?
I
First
believe
10
one?
miles from each missing
20
location, right?
Yeah, 23 miles. Each
23.
were
maybe there's some
found
other
23
deaths,
miles.
like another 10 miles away from there. Like maybe, it's just some because they go into those numbers and
I do
and
have
shit
a
and get
list of
weird with it.
dissimilarities if you want to hear those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so the first Cheryl is the 16-year-old. So the first, and then the second is Cheryl, the 10-year-old.
Right.
So Cheryl was a teenager, and Cheryl was a child. Cheryl was shot. Cheryl was stabbed. Cheryl had not been sexually assaulted. Cheryl had been raped with instruments. Cheryl had been discarded on a creek bank. Cheryl was submerged in water, but they were both covered. Cheryl's body had been buried in leaves. Cheryl's body had been camouflaged with stones. Cheryl's clothes were scattered around town. Cheryl's clothing has never been located. They have found nothing of hers. The mutilation of the bodies was markedly different. A letter Z and on Cheryl, and then on the other Cheryl, a circular pattern.
Maybe they're spelling something. Or, I mean, the thing is...
doesn't the zodiac sign have a Z
So,
and a circle around it?
I've got a little
So
something
maybe
on the
one had
zodiac.
a Z and one had the circle.
So
somebody mimicking.
So despite the thorough investigation, and this is on Cheryl Siegel, the 16-year-old. Despite a thorough investigation, however, no hard evidence emerged tying Finley to the Zodiac slayings. and confirmed Zodiac correspondence continued until 1974, 3 years after Finley's confinement on death row. Eventually, the two bludgeonings in San Francisco were determined to have no connection to the Zodiac murders. But the reason that they were saying that was a Z, and also the left nipple being,
I mean, I personally feel like it's somebody's taking treasures, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're burying your possession after killing it, like you really care for what you've done, you know, something like that. Like, that's sick, and that's kind of what connects them if you think about it. Like, they buried him under leaves and rocks.
Right. So if you guys hear barking, we have some vicious German Shepherds up there protecting us.
Yeah,
so
they're
excuse
fucking
the barking.
They're deranged.
They're deranged.
They're all deranged up there.
Yeah.
Deranged dogs.
Yeah, that's our protection. But,
Probably
you know,
seen a
it's...
ghost.
I think the similarity of like the bodies being covered. I mean, you think about it. People that dump bodies, they always cover them.
Yeah, you're right.
There's no similarity there, really. I don't think, other than any other.
Well, they were both found in water, correct?
One was on the side of the water.
Okay.
The other one was in the water.
But the creek levels could change too. I mean, he could have meant
it's a
for it to
possibility.
be underwater at one point in time.
Right.
Hoped that it would get underwater.
Yeah, exactly.
Or it was when he buried it and the creek went down. You know, we don't know how long she actually was put there.
Right.
Right. One of the things that really and I would love to know more about it. Hopefully, you know, Beth will hit more on this. But one of the psychics that they talked to kept saying something about a shoe. And she just kept bringing it up. I mean, I think she said like 13 times a shoe.
Uh-huh.
So she's like, I don't know if she was bending over tying her shoe, if she lost a shoe, if the shoe's a clue. You know, just stuff like this. And ever since I learned about it, even, I don't know, when something, you know, comes up about a child missing, I always think of this little girl, her birthday. I mean, just what happened?
Yeah.
Do we know the other Cheryl's birthday? Was she killed close or something to her, any kind of birthday?
I didn't
date?
see anything about that. We can definitely look into that.
Because I don't know, maybe some other people, you know, I'm just real curious in the numbers, similarities, and everything.
You know, it is, and that really drawed me into this case was the similarity in the names, and you know, a year to a day apart.
Yeah.
And that Finley, who was convicted of killing, you know, Cheryl Siegel, said there will be
More.
another one.
Yep, and you will know that it wasn't me.
Yeah, and the closeness.
Is he still alive? Is the Finley?
Finley,
guy,
I
is he still
believe he
alive?
is. I believe he is.
Wow.
And the other thing is, you know, the person that did do this to Cheryl may not be alive now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the longer it goes.
Yeah,
I mean, that was
been a while,
47,
yeah.
48 years ago. So, I don't know. It's just really, it gets your heart.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
But,
There's still more to learn, and definitely more to discuss. I'd say drop a comment below if anyone's interested in us talking more about both
absolutely.
Cherylls.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just think it's crazy to think too how, like, nowadays, you know, there's still fucking hundreds of kids and thousands of kids that are going missing every day and week, and you know they all have cell phones now that, you know, and they're still getting snatched up. So, you know, these people are sick, and they find ways to get these. I mean, they're getting even better at it, you know. Like, it was easy for them back then, you know, but now, you know, even, you know, there's street cameras and everything, and they're still going missing.
Human trafficking.
So I just found this. So, despite the passage of 4 decades, determining a link between the Siegel and Spiegel murders is now more critical than before. You just asked if Finley was still alive.
Right.
Says James Finley evaded execution courtesy of Furman versus Georgia. And after 46 years in prison, he's currently eligible for supervised release.
Oh my God, after
Give me a break.
46 years in prison.
Yeah,
but what if he
the
didn't
board-
do it?
Yeah, what if he didn't do it?
I mean, do you know how
I mean,
many people get locked up on a regular basis just
yeah.
because the justice system?
Yeah.
It's so sad. I
Yeah.
mean, I hope they got the right guy, but with all the information that we have in front of us, how hard is it to tell?
Right.
And you know, and he may have been involved. It may have been 5 or 6 of them, and they found their way out to get the police off their back and threw dude under the bus. Like,
Well, it
Promise
says
an
because all of a
alibi.
sudden, dude has an alibi from 3 other guys, but they're all
Throw
bike
one
gang
under the bus.
brotherhood. Well, they're not. I'm not naming
Well,
the club,
and
but
I
they're
think
all
the
claim to
psychic
be brothers
said
and stuff.
that
but-
she thought maybe 2 people were involved in Cheryl Spiegel's abduction.
Yeah. The
That's what
brother-in-law and the dude who said he had to stop at his brother-in-law's when dropping a 16-year-old girl.
No, the
I'm talking
10-year-old.
about the other case.
Oh, they think 2 people were involved in that
That's
one?
what the psychic
Oh,
said.
Yeah. Well,
She
they
said a
said
black man and a white man.
they said the board stopped his first attempt at parole, possibly because he continues to deny his guilt. But Finley's next hearing, scheduled for 2018, inches ever closer. So I'm going to look more into that.
Oh, yeah, we
To
definitely
see-
got to find
yeah.
out if he got out or if he's in
Somebody-
a halfway house or...
Somebody needs to ask that guy. It's like, well, if it wasn't you and you know it's going to happen again, then who is it? Because somebody obviously dropped dime on you, bud. You know, guns in your car, blood's on your jacket. Like, you know, I'm not saying he, like I said, he may have been involved with it all, and then they just dropped dime on him. And
Yeah.
So I did a little looking around and found out how lucky this Finley guy was who murdered Cheryl Siegel, the 16-year-old. 22 hours before he was to be executed, the Ohio Supreme Court abolished the death penalty, and he was taken off death row. So he has been up for parole, and has been denied. His most recent was August of 2018, denied. Thank goodness. And his next parole hearing will be in June of 2023.
2023.
Yeah.
I can't remember. The blood that they found on his jacket was hers.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's best that he stays in there. I mean, even if he was involved with other people doing it, I mean, there's blood on his jacket. He knows something.
Yeah. Now,
Well, everybody says I'm not the right one. You're
Oh,
gonna get
exactly.
somebody
yeah, and
else.
he's never
Nobody's ever-
shown
yeah.
remorse. He's
Especially
never
if you
admitted
have
his
the
guilt.
eligibility for parole, you're not going to admit to that.
Right.
You're still going to claim your innocence no matter what.
well, he didn't want the chair either.
Well, they took that option away just in the nick of time, didn't they?
What?
They took that option away just in the nick of time.
The other thing that I want to touch real quick on, even though that it's public knowledge what motorcycle club this Finley guy was involved in, and we were saying with the other Cheryl, you know, that there was some rough characters down there, were in no way. I know a few people that are with motorcycle clubs, and they do amazing charity work. Good people.
Right.
So we're not lumping, we're not lumping all this together and saying anything bad.
Oh, absolutely not.
Except for,
The
what
facts.
has been proven, and we're not even mentioning the club. It's
Right.
public knowledge. You can go look for it yourself. But we just wanted to make that clear, because I do know some really amazing people that do amazing things for kids, animals, so that are part of a motorcycle club.
Well, it's part of that stereotype.
Yeah.
And it is.
You know.
It is.
Especially
motorcycle
back,
gangs are-
especially back then, because a lot of guys got bad raps just because they were on a loud bike and wore a black vest. You know?
Yeah.
They
Right,
got-
exactly.
A lot of people back then got bad rap right off the rip, but it sounded like this guy had something. You know what I mean? He was somewhat tied to. I mean, he had to have known something. I don't think he was the only one involved. I think, maybe the main person is still out there. I think he had a hand in it, but I don't know if he was. I'm not convinced it was him and it's saved or it's solved and it's done.
Right.
Like I think there's more to it and somebody skated.
Well, and the thing, I mean, he's
out
of
scot-free.
course.
Yeah.
And I'm still kind of reading because this is it was really hard to find, a lot of information. I can't even find her birth date actually on Cheryl Siegel, but
I'm real curious to know if anybody can find the
What
Cheryl
year?
Siegel, the 16-year-old girl's birth date, just to see if it correlates with the October or anything like that.
What year did she die again?
she Siegel,
Yes.
16-year-old,
Yes.
she died in 70.
She died in
1970.
1970, and she was 16 years old.
She was 16 years old.
So she was born in 1954. That information we do know. We just don't know her exact month or day, but she was born in 1954.
So this is another thing. This is kind of interesting. It's kind of crazy. I found this now. It said at Finley's trial, and this is for Cheryl Siegel, the 16-year-old. At Finley's trial, the jury heard from multiple witnesses who found Cheryl's belongings all over town the day after the murder. One witness found her yellow poncho, one witness found her shoe, and another found her wallet. A blood expert from the Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation testified that the blood found on Finley's jacket and other clothing, as well as inside the automobile, matched the blood type of Cheryl Siegel.
He must have been
The
spooked.
shoe.
During the trial, authorities found a
shoe.
15-page pornographic letter hidden in Finley's shoe. According to court documents, the letter was addressed to Finley's wife. And it had the most description of sex perversion engaged in by the defendant and his wife. So that's kind of
Interesting.
weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
That is
Maybe
very
it was
weird.
the wife. Maybe
But wait.
maybe the wife got pissed and was like, "I'll get this other Cheryl bitch."
Didn't the psychiatrist, or not psychiatrist, Lord have mercy, didn't the psychic, I said psychiatrist.
The psychic for Cheryl
She's-
Spiegel kept saying something about a shoe.
And Spiegel,
Yeah,
the
the
10-year-old.
Yes,
Yeah.
the young one. She kept saying something about a shoe, so that's kind of interesting.
It is odd.
I don't know.
about the
And
shoe.
the thing is, this kind of stuff you can go over and around and think, and it can drive you absolutely crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's just so many. There's two people that know exactly what happened, and
Yeah.
they're no longer here, And of course, this Finley guy is going to say he didn't do it, and he's showed no remorse whatsoever.
Right.
And that's probably why he'll never get out.
Yeah.
Which,
So
if he did.
So the other girl that was with the first Cheryl,
She actually, what I just read, which wasn't in the other account, she witnessed the gun, had a bad feeling about this guy. They were at this, and it was a local, the Firefly Cafe was a local hotspot.
Hangout thing. Yeah.
And they wanted to go home. They didn't have a ride. He offered to give them a ride. And once they were going, her friends, Cheryl's friend, felt something wasn't right, actually saw the gun and begged Cheryl to spend the night with her. And Cheryl said no. I want to
Okay.
go home. And that's the last that anybody saw her. So the friend actually had a bad feeling about this guy.
Yeah, I mean,
I
that's
don't-
kind of a dead giveaway
Mm-hmm.
anyways. I mean, maybe the friend didn't say it all and she felt like he was flirtatious towards her or something for
Well,
her to
it's
say,
kinda-
I want you to just go ahead and come home with me instead of riding home on your own, just in case.
I don't think she ever left the brother-in-law's house.
Possibly not.
Was her blood found in the car in the car? Well,
Yes.
obviously, couldn't take her somewhere.
Where
was the I wonder where the brother-in-law's house was compared to
and
where
of course the
bodies
brother-in-law is saying that he
never
never seen them.
Even though he's saying he was there.
So yeah.
Well, he's just trying to blame it on somebody, you know.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, you just don't. And well, and
maybe
two of the club members backed his brother-in-law's.
Well, who wouldn't when you're in a
story
club?
up.
You're kind of binded to things like that. I mean, you make oaths to one another, and that's the way those things go anyways.
So, but like I said, I mean, I would really love to hear, everybody's opinion. And like I said, man, go and read Gone in the Fog, the blog by Beth Rowland. It's
excellent.
It's a very, very in-depth, and she's really, she's invested in trying to find out who took this little girl's life. And it's been so many years ago, the killer may not, may be dead because it's been so long. But at least it would give peace of mind, to know who did it.
Especially being that invested in it for so long.
Right.
Drop a comment below to tell us what you guys think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hit that subscribe.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed our first podcast. It was a little jumpy, but you know what? It was interesting. And I actually have more questions now after being, questioned from Helena and Cody and Ron. So
let us know if you guys have any more questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Epstein didn't kill himself.
Oh, shit.
Psh, Deranged Nation.
All right, thanks, guys.
Nation.
See you next week.
Back at Deranged Nation.
You've been listening to the Deranged Nation podcast. Join us every Wednesday night for a new episode as we bring you true crime, unsolved mysteries, and other deranged stories. This episode was sponsored by Braps MX and ATV Pro Shop. Visit them at brapsmx.pro. Also, visit our host, teresagabelman.com, New York Times bestselling paranormal romance author of the Protectors series, available on amazon.com. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.